Okay, I think I fixed the sound problem. Anyone can let me know if you can hear me now and how well my audio quality is. So we've got Cardinal here. Hello, Mr. Cardinal. And down here. The Cardinal enjoying some mealworms. Here with a hummingbird. There he is. Let's see, which one are you? Could be the ruby throat. He's got a pretty straight beak. I'm going to go double check my sound. Okay, so on my end, my sound seems to be working. I think my voice might be a little quiet, but without massively redoing my setup, I'm not sure how I can change that too much right now. If you need me to talk louder, just let me know. So, welcome to the virtual First Tuesday Bird Walk. I've been having a little issues with my lens fogging up because I'm sticking it out a window right now and it's been in the AC all night. But other than that, with the audio issues fixed, I think we should be good to go. So let's just get right into looking at the birds. I already spent a few minutes talking about cardinals, but apparently I was talking to myself at the time because my audio wasn't being transmitted. So let's talk about cardinals again, since that is what we've got a lot of out here. And actually, let me just scrub off my lens real quick, because I think I'm getting more buildup of foggy stuff on my lens again. So let's get a little clean. There we go. I just have to keep polishing the lens off every few minutes until it adjusts to the outside temperature. But there we go. There's a nice male adult cardinal. And I'm hearing that nice little tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle in the background is a Carolina wren. and you can hear it doing a little alarm call here and there. But I have a lot of cardinals here today, including some slightly confusing young ones that I want to touch on a little bit. Of course, this male here, most people would be able to recognize. He's got a big crest, he's got a big orange beak, and he's bright red. Let's see if I can find one of my other ones. The chickadee just gave an alarm call and kind of scared them all away, but here is one of my younger cardinals. You can see he looks a little funky when he's in focus. He's still bright red, but he's missing a few of the important traits that you associate with a cardinal, mainly that bright orange beak. You can see his beak is not bright orange. It's a little more dark and yellowish. A month ago, that would have been completely dark. When they're first fledged, they hatch out with almost slate-colored dark beaks, and then it starts to turn orange. This guy's beak is starting to turn orange, but it's not quite there yet. So some people get a little confused looking at these guys and think you might have a paraluxia, because you can see with Mr. Big Guy who just flew in here that there's quite a difference between these two birds. But when you're looking at one of these young cardinals and trying to figure out if it is indeed a cardinal or a paraluxia, look at the shape of the beak. The paraluxia's beak is more rounded and curved on the end, while the cardinal's, no matter the age, is going to be more pointed. If this guy would stick his head around the corner, you'd see that, but here's one up here. You can see he's got a nice pointed beak. Paraluxia would be much more curved. And also, while you might get a little confused looking at a young male or a female cardinal and trying to determine if it's gray enough to be a paraluxia. Now, this guy's an adult male, but here is a chickadee. Hello, chickadee. And there's a female. The paraluxia will be much more gray overall. You see how the female cardinal looking through this leaf right now, but you can still see she has a very warm color on her breast. Let's see. Looks like they're still having some voice issues, hearing a doubling of the voice. Let's see. Let me try turning off this and see if I'm still. Let me know if that has fixed the doubling of the voices, or if my voice is not completely gone or not, because I think I had to turn off one of my audio devices. Let's see, if not, I'm not sure what else I can try, but we'll try figuring something out. Let's see. So where was I talking about paraluxia? Yeah, paraluxia are going to be a lot more gray overall instead of having that nice warm color that this female cardinal would have. And of course the beak is going to be different. It's more yellow and it's very curved on the end. Oh, and I just thought of something else that might be causing the voice doubling. I have a microphone outside and a microphone on a headset right next to me, so you might be hearing my voice through both of those. But the one outside would be quieter, which is why I have the one stuck to my head. And if that's the issue, okay, it looks like we might be back on track. I did have redundant audio devices turned on. It's a learning experience all throughout, but hey, it was very nice of this cardinal to fly in and show herself. This is another young one. You can see she's still a little washed out on the beak, not quite that bright red. This is probably one that was hatched out a little earlier on in the season. She's getting a little more mature, but still a little scruffy around the edges. Let's see what else is showing up. Ah, here's a new bird that's down here. A young Carolina wren. Hello, little Carolina wren, if you'll let me get you in focus. Hello. Yeah, there's the wren going for the mealworms. Wrens do love mealworms. And I just so happen to have started a mealworm farm recently. If anyone else wants mealworms, nice live wriggly worms are and I'm back. Yeah, that was my camera. It's set to turn itself off every 5 minutes or so because DSLR cameras are not exactly made for live streaming, but that's the best I have to work with right now. So excuse it going black every now and then. If it starts happening too much and my camera is overheating to a large extent, I'll swap to another camera that's not quite as good, but made for more long-term streaming use. Let's see, what was I talking about? Alright, mealworms. So, birds really love them. Cardinals do. It looks like I've got a titmouse that is considering coming over to check it out, or it's heading over to the water. Let's look at where that titmouse is going. There it is. Hello, titmouse. Wanting to get a drink. Now this one, I just put out a video about hybrid titmice, and this one looks like it could be a very close to black-crested, but that crest looks pretty light. I'd hope to be 100% sure if I was looking at a pure black-crested that crest would be a lot darker, would be pure black, and this one looks like it's a little more grayish black. It's pretty close. The amount of buffiness on the forehead, it seems okay for a pure black-crested titmouse, but I'd expect something a little bit darker there to count that. But if any titmouse researchers are listening to this now, feel free to tune in the chat. But this one could be a young one still that's still growing in all its dark crest feathers, but that one looks like the crest is a little too light to be a pure black-crested titmouse. So I'd call that one a hybrid. It keeps moving around. I can hear him talking a little bit. Let's see if we've got anything else. I'll zoom out for a second. Pan across my cardinals. Let's do a count of the cardinals. Oh, and I just heard a blue-gray gnatcatcher. It was that really high-pitched zee, 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 zee in the background, kind of buzzy and nasal. Let's see, we've got a couple Carolina Wrens. There's one, and there's the other. Let's see, it's foraging, looking for something tasty. And this, again, looks like a young bird. Notice how the feathers on the head are still a little scruffy looking, tail looks a little short. Could just be a molting bird, but I'd guess this is one of my young ones that I had hatch out earlier in the year. Still nice buffy breast, big white eye line is a good indicator. You put both of those things together and that tells you you're looking at a Carolina Wren. Buick's Wren is going to have a gray breast. If you see that nice buffy color on there, that is definitely a Carolina. And comparing the two, Carolina's a little bit chunkier, a little bit heavier, and they're more warm colored. The brown on the back of a Buick's Wren is a definite brown, while the brown on the back of a Carolina Wren is kind of a more reddish brown. And this guy that just hopped by here is a good specimen of a very young cardinal. My camera's getting unhappy that I'm not using the autofocus to keep it awake. But it's a nice young cardinal, very dark beak. So it looks like it's a male. It's getting quite a bit of red on it, but still has the dark beak. By next year he'll be one of the nice bright red males, but you can see how it might not trigger in your mind that that is a cardinal when you first see it, because the beak is very slate colored. It doesn't have that big orange beak. Let's see, Staring out the window, I've got about 10 cardinals out here right now. That's the main thing that we're hearing, is the chipping of the cardinals. Let's see. There they are. Young male, who is a bit more developed than the last one. He's still getting all of his feet color in, but he's got a good amount of his red plumage. He's molting. And then there's the female down to the right. Beautiful sounding Carolina wren singing. You can hear it, but I would like to find it. Where are you? They're doing that little buzzing sound is also a Carolina wren. They're just teasing me, just out of view of the camera. Buzz. Now, one thing I am keeping an eye out for here is a little greenish yellow flycatcher. I had a yellow-bellied flycatcher come by my bird bath last evening. I'm hoping that he might come back here so we can talk about empids. So I know everyone absolutely loves identifying little Empidanax flycatchers. This one is, hopefully he'll come by, but if not, the yellow-bellied flycatcher, something to watch for is they have a nice solid eye ring. And this one looked like it was a young one because it's a little buffy still on the wing bars and around the eye ring. And they're very greenish down the back, and well, like the name suggests, they have a yellow belly, and the length of the primary wing feathers is moderate. It's not super short, not super long. There's a chickadee for a split second. I still can't find where that little singing wren is. They are, oh, there he is. He's back here on the cages. Or there's a wren, might not be the one that's singing. He's back behind my turkey. There it is. Carolina wren hopping around in the chicken cages that I have set up so the deer don't eat all my plants. Let's see here, we've got some more stuff coming up to the drip. Chickadee and titmouse. Again, it looks like our little, mostly black-crested, but still, I would call that hybrid titmouse. Very, for it to be a full black-crested titmouse, again, I'd want to see a darker crest on that bird. And here's a titmouse enjoying some mealworms. Grabs it, flies off to a perch. Let's see if I can get it. To raise my window up a little bit, which might scare some of the birds. Yeah. Window, lock in place. There we go. Here comes the titmouse again. I think it might be working its way down to the mealworms. This one has a pretty dark crest. Oh, it's going for a peanut this time. So lots and lots of cardinal chips. Chickadee that just flew out of view. Got to be other birds showing up here somewhere. If we're lucky, maybe that blue-gray gnatcatcher might fly in. We still haven't had our house finch for the day yet. Usually the house finch comes in. Seems like we are getting about, probably up to about 15 cardinals or so. cardinals. You are very pretty, but need a little bit more diversity here. Bring some of your other friends in, would you? Oh, here's a titmouse on the bird bath. Come on, take a bath. They're some of my favorite birds to watch take a bath because they just get really into it. You can hear the crowing of the Texas jungle fowl in the background. Cardinals, and here's a chickadee enjoying some suet. That's one of my 3D printed bird feeders. If anyone listening wants one, just let me know and I'll figure out a way to get one to you. They come in all different colors and sizes and shapes. And you can stick them to your window, or put them on a branch like this one. Little chickadees demonstrating how they are able to get into those. Well, and of course it flies away as soon as I start talking about them, but unlike the cardinals, who have that big, giant conical bill that can crush through almost anything, chickadees have a relatively small bill. So that's why they always grab a seed and fly away to a favorite perch, because they need to hammer away on it to break it open by pecking at it instead of just crushing it in their gigantic beak, like a cardinal does. And that's why you'll see the cardinals just sitting on a feeder for minutes on end, pigging out and eating seeds. You can watch this guy here grab a seed and then manipulate it with his beak and crush it open without needing to peck at it. I'm going to run over to my computer for a second and check everything is working. I'll leave you with Mr. Cardinal here, who will hopefully stick around for a bit. Good. Everything seems to be working so far and hasn't broken horribly. I can already feel my main camera is getting a little warm, so we'll see how long it will last. But it's not flashing an error at me saying it's overheating yet, like when I was trying to stream in Arizona. Then it got quite angry at me for about half an hour. Oh, there's a little chickadee. Let's see who else might show up. Even all the cardinals have just departed. There's Titmouse dark-crested version of the titmouse. I'm hearing fussing Carolina wrens again in the background. Every bird seems to have vanished. Here comes the titmouse again. Grabbing a bark butter bit. Everything just flew off. Wonder if a Cooper's hawk or something has come by. I'm just hearing angry wrens, and looking out the window, I do not see a single bird anywhere. And yet, I can hear the angry sounding Carolina wren. Maybe we can find where the wren is. Usually like that little brush pile back there, but I don't see him there now. Got some stuff moving up in the trees. Chickadee is just on the feeder. Chickadees flying in and out of the feeder. Always grabbing a seed and flying away. They don't like to hold still. Titmouse is fussing, chickadees are fussing, wrens are fussing. Couple minutes, see if anything comes back. If not, I might see how far I can stretch the Wi-Fi and go walk around outside a little bit. See if my streaming tablet is doing. It's a little overheating, not too bad. Give me a minute. I'm going to enable the fans on my streaming tablet, cool it off a little bit for just a second. Okay, let me know if the fans are too loud and overpowering the speakers or the microphone. Don't think they should be. And still no birds. Getting some fussy little guys. Has to have been a hawk or something that came by. I can see the titmice up there in the tree, occasionally coming down to grab a seed. mostly staying hidden. You hear the Cardinals giving their sharp chip notes in the background. Something must have come by. There's the chickadee feeder. Let's see if we can. I'd like to see if we could find a perch that he was on. Oh, we've got a hummingbird. There it is. Now this one. That is a black chin. Yeah, there's the gorget. He actually showed his gorget for a second. A little longer beak. And of course he had to perch directly behind the one obstacle on the feeder. There he is. There, look at that nice purple gorget flashing in the, not quite sun yet, but the light. And off he goes. Now when he was hovering there, you notice he's kind of pumping his tail up and down a little bit. The ruby throats don't do that as much when they're feeding. They more hover and their tails stay a little bit still. That's one indicator to look a little close, but with any behavioral identification like that, you always have to be careful because the wind could be blowing and cause the ruby throat to pump its tail a little more to stabilize itself, or it could just have a lazy black chin who's not moving his tail around. But it's always an indicator you can use along with things like the length of the bill or the amount of gray on the back of the head. And of course, if you see the male with his gorget, that's always very helpful. It's the easiest way to tell apart ruby throats and black chin hummingbirds if you get to see the male's gorget. But life isn't always that easy, so you have to look at some of the behavioral cues. And bill length is usually one of the easier things I find to go on. Black chin hummingbird's bill length is longer than the width of its head, and it has a little droop to it, while the ruby throat has a very straight bill, and it's equal to or a little bit shorter than the width of the head, if you get a nice side-on view. Combine that with the tail bobbing, and we've got a titmouse. Oh, missed it. It's too slow. Titmouse was on the suet feeder. He's probably the most over-engineered suet feeder I've ever seen, and I absolutely love it. It's a Brome dual suet feeder, squirrel-proof suet feeder. So it holds 2 blocks of suet in there, and so far has been pretty good at keeping anything and everything that's not a bird from eating the suet. Let's see, we've got Titmouse. Again, I missed him. Let's see here, we might have a good look at a young cardinal. Yeah, there he is. Getting his red in with his dark slate-colored bill. At least the birds are coming back. Titmouse on the hanging log. He was. I've got another bowl of mealworms up there that they like to come into. And the chickadees in the background. That was another chickadee alarm call. It was just the wind. Could be the weather is throwing the birds off, but I think there's something flying around here. Or they're just getting kind of disturbed by the funny looking camera poking out the window and the guy talking about them. Yeah, nice song from the chickadee. Here comes the titmouse. Let me grab another worm. Yeah, So it's not just wrens and purely insect-eating birds that will be attracted by mealworms. You put out live mealworms, and the titmice really love them. The cardinals, especially when they're feeding young, absolutely love the mealworms. And I've put out dried mealworms versus the live, and the birds highly prefer the live mealworms. They go for those every time before they even touch the dried mealworms. It's easier to store dried mealworms, but it's not too bad short-term storing live mealworms. You just put them in your refrigerator and they keep for a few weeks at least. Singing Carolina wren. Chickadee grabbing and running. Chickadees really like the black oil sunflower. So here he is. The trees. It's difficult on the camera. Where's the cardinal? I just heard the blue-gray gnatcatcher again. I don't know if you all caught that, but it's just a faint buzz in the background. A little single note. Bzz. There are chickadees and titmice fussing around in the tree. Cardinal chips. Carolina wren. Carolina wren buzzing. There was the gnatcatcher again. Bzz, bzz, bzz. Maybe if we're lucky, it'll come down to the drip. Oh, we got a new bird. I think he's too high for my camera to reach him right now. But there's a ladderback woodpecker that's just flown in up here. Hopefully he will come down. Excuse me. Come down a little lower. Jump that high. There he is. Ladderback woodpecker. Of course, doing the woodpecker thing and going behind the trees. But there he is. And that is just as high as my camera will go. I can't get it any higher. It's hitting the window. And he flew off. Right. Got some great suet here, woodpecker. And back. Hearing a couple hummingbirds. And titmice back on the log. Gonna grab another mealworm. And off it goes. I'm hearing tapping, but I think that's just the titmice and the chickadees pecking away, not the woodpecker. Is this a new bird? I think we might have a Buick's wren over here in the log pile. Dropped in really fast. See if I can find him. Down there somewhere. It looked a lot more grayish than the Carolina wrens we've been seeing. I only saw him for a split second, but I think this might be our Buick's wren. Yep, there. There he is. Zoom in on him. Yes. There is a Buick's wren. See how much more gray he is on the breast. And more brownish on the back. Very different from the Carolina wrens. Where's he going? Oh, he's going up to the mealworms, I bet. Let's see there. Yep. There he is. Nice. The Buick's wren. It's going for the suet, not the worms. The Titmouse just scared him off. Here, and he's back down here, heading towards his log pile. Good. So we got 2 wrens so far this morning. Oh, there he is. He's on the ground. Hearing the blue-gray gnatcatcher. There goes the Buick's wren. Hopping around, skulking his way back into the woodpile. Wrens really do like being in wood piles. It's nice and safe. There's cover. And there's food. It's usually insects. Hear a hummingbird again. Let's see which feeder he's coming to, if any. In. He's flying high up, and I'll get set up on the feeder. Hopefully he'll come down. It's a big change from when I was just out in West Texas a week and a half ago, and there was sat on someone's back porch with probably at minimum 100 rufous hummingbirds coming to feeders at a single time. It was absolutely amazing. There wasn't really any easily accessible internet for me out there. Maybe I'll try and figure that out and get back out there at some point and stream a little bit if I can. 'Cause that was amazing to see that many hummingbirds in one place. But my single uncooperative hummingbird is not coming down to the feeder. We've got the young Carolina wren is back. Coming. Where's the cardinal? Where'd the wren go? Oh. On the mealworms. Carolina wren enjoying a mealworm. And down the hatch. Let's see how much more buffy colored this bird is than that Buick's wren. And he's just gonna have some breakfast there. And come back for another one. This is a young one, still a little scruffy around the head. He fledged a while ago. He's gotten his tail grown in, mostly. Just the last little fluffy bits on the head to go. And this is more a demonstration of how these young birds can just look just different enough so it doesn't trigger that identification reflex in your head. You look at the majority of the field marks, you can tell it's a Carolina wren, but you might think you've got something different when you first see this bird. And even looking in the field guides, it doesn't always show the young birds perfectly. So this time of year, you can encounter some weird-looking birds that just don't fit anything in the field guide. And you just have to kind of expand out a little bit, I like to use eBird and the Macaulay Library to look at what other pictures people have taken of birds. You can filter it by location and I believe even by time of year, and that way you can get some looks at these funky looking juveniles that don't always match up to what the guide says they should look like, because when they're young and they're developing, they don't always grow the same way, and you get funny looking feathers on the head, or different shades of gray, or with the flycatchers you can get different buffy colors on the wing bars. With the vireos you can get really drab looking juveniles versus really bright looking juveniles. So it's sometimes takes a little bit of extra work this time of year. Earlier in spring, when everything's an adult or a first year juvenile, they usually match up the field guide. But you get some interesting looking birds now. Let's see if this one can figure out. The guy is looking through the glass at the bottom trying to get the worms. No, you gotta jump up. I'm giving up. Poking through the logs. Oh, he's found some of the suet that I dropped earlier. And they all fly away. I haven't seen any hawks. Might just be the changing weather. I think we're getting a front coming through. Got the birds a little spooked. Let's see if we've got anything else that's showing up. So it's oh, right, we do have a new bird that just flew in. It's the elusive and rare white-winged dove. There it is. But hey, it's a new bird. At least a new bird for the stream. There it is. Hello, white-winged dove. It's got to just be the wind. If the white-winged doves are coming in, they wouldn't be coming around. If the hawk was actively flying through the area. He's a little apprehensive. He's not coming down to hog the feeders right away. Checking stuff out a little bit. But hey, gotta take what you can get, I guess. And I'll take a white-winged dove. I haven't seen him already yet. Keep hoping that ladderback woodpecker might come back through. So far, no luck on the woodpecker. Where'd the dove go? Hasn't flopped onto the ground yet. Go back to the drip for now. I hear hummingbirds. Carolina wren into the drip. Is he going to take a bath or is he just taking a shower? I've got a mister running there as well. So they sometimes just like to sit in the mist. Carolina Wrens. And the Cardinals are coming back down. Singing Carolina Wrens. You can hear that nice clear ringing sound. Tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle. Sounds like the wrens are having a little sing-off. There's one in the distance, and then this closer wren, and it's a little bit louder for us, is responding to them. far, no major overheating warnings. Hearing the hummingbirds. And before I left for Arizona earlier in the month, I had at least 3 pairs of painted buntings coming here. And they fledged out some little chicks. I had a bunch of little fuzzy-headed green painted buntings flying around here. But they have started migrating already. And painted, at least the adult painteds, the males and the adult females, are mostly gone right now from what I've been able to see. There's, of course, going to be a few stragglers hanging around. I saw one young painted bunting come into my feeders yesterday, but not the adult males. When I was out in Arizona, the males are just starting to migrate through there. So they're on the move, so if you've had painted buntings and you've noticed that they're all gone now, that's, well, fall migration is starting already. So keep your ears open for the sandhill cranes to be flying back over, and keep an eye out for fall migrant warblers and anything else that might be coming through. The yellow-bellied flycatcher I had the other day was most likely a migrant. It's the first time I've seen that one. Oh, here comes the hummingbird again. There he is, bobbing his tail. Yep, looks like a black chin. It's the length of the beak versus the width of the head. So even without seeing the gorget, I would say that this is a pretty good example of a black chin hummingbird. The bill droops a little bit, and when he picks that up, you can see it's definitely longer than the head, and he was bobbing his tail around when he was flying in. I have had ruby throats the last few days. I hadn't for most of the summer, so again, I would say that the ruby throats are migrating. So we get starting to get some different birds coming through. Keep an eye out. We might be getting some rufous here. They sometimes actually spend the winter. So if you do have your hummingbird feeders up, don't be afraid to keep them up throughout the winter as long as you've got birds coming to it. You're not going to cause the birds to stick around if they don't want to, but there are some hummingbirds that do winter here in central Texas, and you might be able to keep them coming to your feeder all winter if you keep the feeder up. Over here, that's a cardinal. Cardinal getting a drink. That's not a bird. There he is. Still more cardinals, chickadees, cardinals, titmice, titmouses, titmeece, however you want to say it, the plural of titmouse. There's titmouse, hiding behind the leaves. Here are the chattery hummingbirds again. Is he going to take a bath? God, jump in the water. This one I think is a young one, a young, most likely hybrid Titmouse. Now, I've rarely seen any super obvious hybrids here at my house. I'm kind of more on the black crested end of the spectrum versus being more in the middle of the hybrid zone. So I get more of the black crested types. And here is another hummingbird. This might be our ruby throat. The tail wasn't bobbing, but I didn't get any other looks at the bird. did look pretty green on the back. Nice if he came back and gave us a comparison to the black chin we saw earlier. Young cardinal, or the same young cardinal. Slate gray bill. This young male is starting to get more of his red plumage in. Got the chickadees coming to the drip. Lots of cardinals just sitting around up in the trees. Chickadee doing a little bit of an alarm call there. Sometimes I wonder if the chickadees just do it to play with the cardinals and give their little dee-dee-dee alarm call and make them all fly away and then hop down onto the feeder. Ha ha, I got you. Okay, got a question here. What would you say is the proportion of hybrid versus black-crested titmouse in this area? Assume the ones with the not-so-black crests were immatures. Yes, and it's kind of hard to say because the hybrid area is only, I think, about 50, 60 miles wide, so the proportions change greatly depending on even a few miles of travel. But this time of year, the ones that are just plain gray, they don't show really anything on the forehead, they don't show anything on the crest, those are going to be your immatures. And now, that was about a month ago when they all were hatching out. Now they're starting to get their black crests in, and it does take time for them to get their fully molt their black crests in. So you get some very light colored crests that may be full black crested titmice, but they're just still molting that feathers in, so they look a little bit lighter. But really, right here is, oh, no, he flew away. But this time of year, it's honestly hard to tell. And if you're right in the middle of the hybrid zone, you're going to be looking at mostly hybrids. I know there's some people that say there are no pure titmice in Hays County. I'm kind of right out here on the edge, and I have seen some very convincing black-crested titmice that look like pure black-crested titmice. But if you're further into the middle of the hybrid zone, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet that most of what you're looking at is hybrids. But since there's such a gradient to what is considered a hybrid, you can have something that looks very, very black-crested titmouse, but unless you do genetic testing on the feathers, it's hard to say for sure. So, proportion of hybrid versus black-crested is honestly hard to say, and there's still research being done on these birds. So, mostly if you want to be sure you're seeing one titmouse or the other, the best bet is to get out of the hybrid zone, drive either west or east, and then you can be sure of what you're looking at. But here, a lot of it just comes down to guessing. And you can look at the traits. If it's a super deep black crest, I call it a black crested titmouse, as long as it doesn't have any obvious dark markings on the forehead. If it's very, very black forehead and pure gray crest, which I haven't really ever seen on my property out here, then that would be a pure tufted titmouse. And if it's something in between, it could be an immature, it could be a hybrid. I usually, if I'm submitting that to eBird, I don't mark it as a hybrid and I don't mark it as full of either species. I will do, eBird gives you an option for tufted / black crested titmouse, and that's when you're just not sure. And if you're not sure, that's usually what I'll put. If you are very convinced that you're seeing one full species or the other, go ahead and put that down. It might be useful for the scientists who are actively studying these birds to see that at least the phenotype of this purebred bird is in this area. And, oh, we've got a new bird. Finally, a house finch. Female house finch. And on eBird, if you do notice something that you're sure is a hybrid, you can put down tufted X black-crested titmouse, which means you're sure that it's a hybrid. And if you want visual representation of okay, yeah, I'm back again. That time it was the battery dying in my camera, so I had to swap out to a new one. But it should be good. It's not overheating. And yes, we're back. But as I was saying, if you want visual representation of the different types of titmice and the kind of the gradient of the hybridization, I do have a short video up on this YouTube channel. You can go look it up. I think I uploaded it about a month ago, and I talk a little bit more about the titmice. I show the ranges, and I show some graphics of the different types of hybridization that you can see in the titmice, so you can get an idea of what you're looking at. And I am by no means a titmouse researcher, but I have seen a lot of titmice. Oh, the Buick's Wren is back. There's the Buick's Wren. Coming over to get some suet. And you can notice how gray the bird is. This one is, you can see it's still got the white eyebrow, but very gray on the breast and brown on the back. It's a more of a nutty brown instead of a reddish brown like you see on the Carolina Wrens. The little Wren's actually holding still more than they usually do. Thank you, little Buick's Wren. It's showing off. You see a little barring in the tail. A very pretty little Wren. Take some time to notice the details. Nice fine barring in the tail. Interesting that he's holding still, and all the Cardinals are kind of frozen in place too. Nice little Buick's Wren. Oh, and here's the comparison. If it'll hold still, Carolina Wren. So see how much more reddish it is on the back, and of course it's got that buffy breast. And then we go back to the Buicks. He's fussing at something. Hard to tell if there's actually something there, or if he's just being a Wren that likes to fuss. I hear the hummingbird again. It's that nice little soft chip, 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 chip. I keep hearing the hummingbirds a lot. They're not coming into the feeders. Interesting little congregation of cardinals up in the tree. Just sitting around up there. I hear a crow. Sounded distant, but guess that's the perks of listening through an amplified microphone. You can hear the birds a little better. Cardinal. And the Carolina Wrens coming back for more mealworms. Cardinals are all gathering up in the trees. None of them are on the feeders. I heard the hummingbird flying around. One of the hummingbirds. Carolina Wren singing in the background. Can't catch up, it was too high. Turkey vulture just flew over. And Wren enjoying the suet. Again, I keep hearing the hummingbirds. Two hummingbirds just zipped by. Oh, I think one is landing. There he is. And one of the hummingbirds just attacked a chickadee mid-flight. Can't get the hummingbird, but there's the chickadee. Wren still. Done something bright red. There's a cardinal to look at. There he is. For Mr. Cardinal's close up. Autofocus really does not like. Yes, there we do it manually. Hello, Cardinal. He's cooperative enough that you can take a second to focus on him. There he is. That's close. That is a nice looking bird. someone else wants to hog the spotlight, I think. Just hopped, the young one just hopped in front. Where'd you go? Take a look at you too. If I can find you. You flew off. Wren. Oh, female hummingbird just flew by. Let's see if I can get her. Or is she too high up? Oh, she's too high up. I keep hearing them. I can see them out the window, but the hummingbirds keep perching way up high and not coming to the feeder. This thing out specifically for you, little guys. Give it a few more minutes, see if anything interesting shows up, and then maybe around 9 or a little before, I will switch to my mobile camera and go take a walk outside, see what we can find until I get out of Wi-Fi range and cause the stream to drop out. I might be able to find something up in the trees. Maybe we can track down that little gnatcatcher we've been hearing. What's up here? Something just flew in. Camera. The house finch. Yep, there's the house finch again. Nice and streaky, and of course the cardinal had to fly in and hog the spotlight again. It's a female house finch. Let's see the little blurry streaks. Oh good, she's coming down to the feeder. A little easier to see her. There she is. Good look at the female. Oh, well. Flies away now. Maybe she'll come back down. But something to look at on the house finches to tell it's for sure a house finch is look at, again, the beak. And the culmen, which is the top part of the beak, is going to be curved a little bit. Instead of straight from the tip of the beak to the end, it curves a little bit down. The whole beak doesn't droop, but it's just a curve on the top. If you do see a perfectly straight conical beak on something that looks like a house finch, then you'll want to take a little closer look, because that might be a Cassin's finch. It's fairly rare in the area, but they do occasionally occur. And they have a little bit more defined streaking, and they're a little lighter colored, I guess lighter colored base coat underneath the streaks if you do see them, so they do stand out a little more. But look at that beak, and that will tell you if it's a house finch, or if you're trying to determine if it's a house finch or some kind of sparrow. Look at the beak. If it's curved on top, then it's not a sparrow, it's a house finch. And now there's 3 hummingbirds buzzing around high up in the air, and still none coming down to the feeder. You can probably hear them in the background. It's male and female out here. Might be ruby throats. So far, I'm not holding still. It's flying all around up there. Sometimes landing on the line there. Let's see if she might come back. Where are you? Outside my range of motion. No young male cardinal. Cardinal coming in for a drink. You notice on the dripper, a lot of times the cardinals like to come drink directly from the drip. Birds don't like feeling exposed, so they will come down and drink directly from a bird bath sometimes, especially if it's kind of enclosed or if that's their only choice. But they like to stay higher up if possible, so something like a little drip hanging down like this is why you get a lot of the birds coming directly to the drip and drinking straight from it. It's a little higher up, they feel a little more secure. They're not exposed and down low to the ground. So if you're considering putting in a drip, make sure that the birds can access the drip nozzle as well, because a lot of times if they're just coming in for a drink and they're not wanting to take a bath, they will prefer to sit up high where they have more visibility and feel a little safer. Eventually I may even put a drip nozzle way up in the tree itself, see if that attracts anything different. Keeps trying to go to sleep on me. I hope we might get a few different species. We've gotten lots of cardinals. And this time of year we're kind of between waves of birds. Like I said, a lot of the summer residents here, the painted buntings, the golden chief warblers, they've all started heading south. They're migrating away, and so they're not hanging around. But we haven't gotten to the point where these sparrows have come down here yet. They're just starting to trickle in. Don't have a sparrow, but we've got our female house finch again. There you can see her bill. Well, every time I focus on her, they all fly away. But I might try this again here in a month or two once all the sparrows come in and we can talk about the different kinds of sparrows. There's a good thing about sparrows versus stuff like warblers or these uncooperative hummingbirds that keep flying in and out and all around, is that the sparrows sit still on the ground and give me plenty of time to focus my camera on them and talk about them. So you got another question. Are they your chickens or someone else's? Yes, these are my chickens that we're hearing in the background. I've got two roosters down there right now, and they kind of crow back and forth to each other. If you hear, there are other chicken flocks around the area, so if you're hearing any very quiet crowing that's very distant, that could be someone else's. They do talk to each other across the valley, but yeah, for the most part, you're hearing all my chickens. And the female house finch. It's returned and flying away because I pointed the camera at her again. She's just very camera shy. And the hummingbirds again. There, you can kind of see them zipping in and out, trying to track them. But this male and female have just been slowly flying around, very close proximity. I'm not sure if it's a young male and an adult male having a disagreement, or if it's a male and female doing some sort of courtship behavior. I wouldn't expect courtship behavior this time of year, but I'm not sure what these two are doing. They're just floating around out here, chattering at each other, and not coming down to the feeder. They're not super aggressively attacking each other. There, you can see them. They're just kind of floating up and down together. I'm not sure what these two hummingbirds are doing. That cardinal up there seems equally puzzled. hovering around. Yeah, they are. One just dove at the other one, so it might be a little bit of territorial stuff. I'm very confused by these two hummingbirds. They've been doing this where they just fly in and out like that, chasing each other around. Been doing that for the last, I don't know, 10 minutes without coming down to drink or even holding still. Not something I'd expect from migrating hummingbirds. Oh, here comes another hummingbird. Finally, one coming to drink. This is a female black chin, just going based on the length of the beak. But notice how it's not really bobbing its tail much, so it's hard to go off of purely behavioral stuff. But looking at, didn't get quite a clear view of the beak that I'd like, but I'd say that beak was fairly long. I'm leaning more towards black chin. But the lack of tail bobbing, and it did seem a little green on the back of the head, might point to female ruby throat. And not every hummingbird. And not every hummingbird can be identified if it doesn't cooperate with you. Rooster. Hummingbird, no. Hummingbirds perch for just a second and then fly away again. It seems like all we're getting are cardinals. Cardinal coming to the drip. Let's see. Since we're not getting much else coming in, I'm going to go get a drink of water and then try and set up for mobile viewing, and we'll go take a walk outside, see if there was anything else lurking around the corner outside of view of this camera. I'll apologize in advance that the view is not going to be this smooth, as I'm going to be hand-holding the camera and walking around. And the stream will likely just cut out at some point, because I know I'm going to see an interesting bird, start walking towards it, and then get out of range of the Wi-Fi. And without internet, there is no stream. And once I lose connection, it doesn't always reliably reconnect even when I get back to internet. So thank you for tuning in to the stream, and hopefully we'll get some more interesting birds here in just a second. But I'm going to go grab some water. I'll leave you with the drip and the cardinals for a bit. So let's hope that this will work. I've gotten my mobile camera set up, and you can see this is where I've been recording all morning. But we will try taking my device and walking outside. Get my big camera out of the way so I can use the door. And let's see, let's take the power cord off and grab this. Okay. Open the door. Alright. Get my tablet set up. Attached to myself. Get some cords managed. Alright. Sorry for the shakiness. So, there's the infinite birdwatching stream. And we'll go for a little bit of a walk if I can figure out how to close the door with all my hands full of cameras. So, I'm still working on my house right now. We're finishing up the rock wall, so excuse the mess. So the hummingbirds are still floating around up in the trees. Hearing the chickadees. See, and hopefully you are all hearing this. I have no way of checking if you are. Downside to putting big rock walls around your house is that it kind of blocks the Wi-Fi signal, so not sure how far I'll be able to go. This is kind of where I was hearing the gnatcatchers. There's something up here in the tree. Try a little pishing, see if we can call something in. Now we got a cardinal. Some very curious cardinals. Chickadees. Cables are getting... Yeah, there we go. Figuring out how to juggle all the cables while still being able to walk. I can hear my Texas jungle fowl. And oh, hello, hummingbird. Yeah, let's see, it's perched right up there on the wire. Of course, it's going to focus on the background, but trust me, that blur in the middle is a hummingbird. Titmouse coming down to grab more mealworms. The titmice are not very fearful. There's an owl. So far, so good. See anything up in the trees here? I do sometimes get Hutton's vireos around here. Heard him the other day. Maybe he'll show up. Okay, looks like I'm all ready. Wi-Fi range. It's throwing up a few errors. Let's see if we can make it around the front here. Oh, that's more of my house. Not much in the sky, even. More hummingbird. They're just not coming into my feeders. What do we have up here? It appears just getting a little distance from my house gets me enough out of Wi-Fi range that it starts having trouble sending anything. So I'm not sure if any of this is even coming through anymore. My computer is inside. That's what I've been checking the stream on, but I can't get in there right now. And I'm not hearing our little gnatcatcher anymore, even. Usually they're fairly responsive to pishing, so he might have moved away. Got a flamingo over there. Add that one to the eBird list. And we're back into Cardinalville anyway. Chickadees, titmice, and cardinals. Let's try walking back here. Try the backside of my little bird area. Oh! Lesser goldfinches! Terrible looks at them, but they were indeed lesser goldfinches. Not sure if the sound came through on the stream, but they were doing... Oh, there he is! Choo! Sweet! And more chickadees. Looks like I can take 2 steps away and it goes from streaming fine to completely dropping the signal. Oh well. Maybe I'll try again later if I get more interesting birds here, or try and find another place with internet I can set up off-site and see if we can find some birds there. I've had limited success streaming over 4G cell phone service, so as long as I can find a birding hotspot with reliable 4G internet, I can stream more walking around stuff. Otherwise, I'll find Wi-Fi and set up my big camera on some feeders. Probably will do this same thing again a month. Come on. Probably do this same format again a month from now for the next first Tuesday walk. But I might do something a bit sooner as well. So just keep posted. If you're on my email list, I'll be sending out information there. If you're not on my email list, I can put you on it if you just send me your email. Or just subscribe to the YouTube channel and my Facebook page, and you should get notifications there as well. Be sure to click the little notification icon for YouTube, and that way you'll get alerted whenever I go streaming online, or hopefully you'll get alerted. YouTube's been weird lately. Hello, Cardinal. He's coming right over here to say hi. Or she is. I think with all the construction work we've been doing out here, the Cardinals have gotten quite used to people walking around. Alright, so I think I'm going to call that a day, and hopefully this all worked out well. And it's not quite the same as birding in person, but it's make the best with what we've got right now. And I will see you next time. Oh, just got the feedback. Thanks for letting me know that it didn't cut out while I was walking around. It seems like it managed to recover itself. So yay! It didn't completely die like it did in the test. Great! Alright. So, signing off.